So before break, we finished with our contour drawing. We had done our value drawing, had talked about light sources, where light comes from, how it projects shadows onto other objects, how they can cast, how our shapes can cast shadows from where the light source is. And then we started getting into contour drawing. Did blind contour. We draw our hand without looking at our paper. We all had these weird sausage-looking things. And then we ended up doing some contour drawing where you're looking back and forth and you're making sure you're drawing all the details. All of that is going to tie into our lesson that we're going to start today. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of studying. So understand that artists study just like everybody else, okay? When they are trying to create a work of art, rarely does an artist just create something and be done with it. Usually what happens is the artists look at a whole bunch of different things. They figure out how to draw something, draw it, paint it, create it over and over and over and over again, and eventually find out how they want to make their final piece. Oh, sorry. There's somebody at my door. Distance learning, fun stuff. I'll be right back and we will continue. Interrupt the middle of my class asking me if I want to buy insect repellent. People. Okay, so here we go. No offense to any of you whose families sell insect repellent. So this is what we're going to do. We're studying. If you are in a Spanish class, you have a test, you have to study for the test, which means you need to practice, right? Usually take a list of words, take sentences, and you go over them until you understand it really, really well so you can speak it. Art is the same exact way. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how to study images and how to practice them over and over again until we can do a phenomenal reproduction using value, using contour lines, everything we've been going over so far to create. Now, this first, for the most part today, you don't necessarily need to draw along with me. I'm going to draw for you. I'm going to show you how it's going to work, how we're going to work through the drawings. And then you'll have free time at the end of the class to start your drawings. But you can try to mess around with it as we go if you would like, okay? So let me flip my camera around real quick, make sure this is all lined up correctly. Okay. And then I also am going to be sharing the view of what we are going to be drawing. So this is an image of a sheet draped on a wall, okay? Piece of fabric, basically. I use this a lot when I'm teaching value. Number one, because the white works really well to cast shadows. And number two, because it's really cheap and inexpensive, okay? If we were in a classroom together, I would have these hung up around the room. Or if you were sitting at a big desk with like 6 other people, it would be kind of in a pile in front of you. The whole concept that we're going to go through is we're going to draw this, but we're not just going to sit down and draw the whole thing. You're going to draw little parts of it. You're going to pick pieces that you want to try to practice your new skills of adding value to your paper, okay? So I'm trying to go, that should be, yeah, you can see me, you can see this, okay, we should be all right. So what I'm going to do, first off, on my piece of paper that I have here, I'm not just going to draw one big sheet in the middle of it. I'm literally going to do a little practice up in the corner, then another one down here, and then another one over here. You'll have 5 of them by the time this is all said and done. Okay, so let me try to work through this for you real quick. You don't have to draw boxes around your pieces. I'm just kind of showing you how big I'm going to be working in this. Okay, so I'm going to go about this size. See how in relation with the rest of my paper, that's pretty small. What we're looking for is I'm going to look at my picture that I have here, and I'm going to kind of start up in this area. Okay, so let me zoom in. That works. Okay, and as I start this, I am not going to go like this. Oh, okay, here's a sheet. Okay, and just draw a big bump, because we're focusing on drawing exactly what we're looking at, and that is not what we have in front of us. Okay, even this It's not what we have in front of us, right? The bump in it. We're going to look at for every little shape that we have. So I'm going to start up at the top of my sheet, and it goes kind of like off to the side at an angle. It's then going to go down and kind of flare itself out to where I don't really see it anymore. Okay. Then up here, it goes off almost flat, and it comes down and out. This is just my contour on my outside. And then it kind of clicks down a little bit, and it goes like this. Okay. Notice that I'm doing light drawings with my pencil. I don't want to push down really hard. I'm just going really light, because what we're going to end up doing is making this look realistic. And how we make fabric look realistic, this is something that I learned in college, not by a teacher showing me, but it's kind of clicked one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. What we try to do is we're going to get rid of our lines that we're drawing. We're going to erase them with value. That makes sense. I'm going to add value until you can't see the line anymore, and that's really going to give us our detail. Okay. So let's see, I tried to do this last class and it didn't work out too hot, but let me see if I can position this camera. Sorry, I don't want to get you all car sick. I'm trying to reposition this so you all can see it easier, and I can draw. Shoop, 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 shoop. It's a bit closer. Yeah, that's better. Cool. We'll do that. Okay, so if you look at this, and then you look at the picture that I have there, I'm going to kind of lightly lay out where my shadows run. So if you look at the arrow on my screen, I'm going to start up here. There's this white highlight kind of right here, and then there's a shadow that comes down the left side. Then there's another middle shadow, and there's this big giant shadow kind of right here. So I'm going to try to replicate those to the best of my ability. Here's the other thing that we need to really understand. When you're drawing from a picture, or you're drawing from something you're looking at, don't worry about making it perfect. This is one of the biggest hangups that I had as an artist, because I'm a perfectionist. You don't have to worry about making it look perfect, because you are probably never, ever going to present your artwork next to the picture you drew from. That makes sense. So when you see them side by side, people go, ooh, that doesn't really look like that. But when you see it by itself, people are going to say, oh, ooh, what a great blanket, or what a great sheet, because they don't have any frame of reference to what it actually looks like. So hopefully that gives you some confidence. So what I'm going to do is I'm lightly going to put a little line right here. And no, don't worry about copying this, Ben. If I am totally fine with you just hanging out and watching me, as long as you're paying attention and not doing other stuff. Okay. So I'm going to go like this, and my shadow kind of gets farther away from the edge as it goes down. So I'm going to pull it out like so. And then right here, there's kind of like a sharp point at the top of this shadow. So this will kind of like go down, and then it shoots over like that. That goes all the way down. And the top of the shadow kind of goes like this. I'm going to go really light with that. And then there's this big kind of curvy looking shadow over here. So this kind of goes like this, and then it goes down, and towards the bottom it kind of curls over, and then this one goes like so. Really, really, really light with this one. So if you see, I just have kind of like a light layout of where my things are going to be. Okay. Now, the first thing I need to do after I get my contour lines laid out is I need to start looking to see where my numbers are. Okay. So look at our value scale. Remember, we had 1 through 8 on our value scale, right? Y'all remember back to the value scale that we did. Well, our 8, our darkest spot possible is probably right here in this shadow on the black background. That's like the darkest dark we have in this whole entire thing, right? Then our 7 is like over here. This might be like 6.5 or so. And then when we get into the fabric itself, I'm going to start trying to look for my shades. So my ones, the bright, bright, brights are like right up in here. In this big shadow, we have kind of like a 5 that goes to a 3, and it goes back to a 5, and it goes out to a 1. So I'm not looking at this as drawing a blanket. I'm looking at this as shapes and then trying to add the correct value transitions to my shapes. One of my biggest hangups when I learned how to draw and I was drawing is I was constantly trying to draw what I thought things looked like. I tried to draw a face the way I thought what a face looked like. Well, the problem with that is then we end up drawing faces with noses that look like this. And noses don't look like that. It actually looks like a cartoon character. Sorry, guys. ADD, my fault. Noses don't look like this because, as you can see, the bridge of our nose has no lines. Okay, it's all just transitions of value. So when I'm drawing this sheet, I want to make sure I try to find where those transitions of value are. Now, remember I used the term earlier of erasing lines with value. So here's the outside of my sheet. What I'm going to do, the same pressure that I used to make the edge of this sheet, is I'm going to come through and I'm going to add value to my drawing. And in doing so, when you take that value and you color that up alongside of the sheet, you end up getting rid of that line. And when you get rid of that line, what happens is it makes that white really pop off of your paper that you're drawing on. So I'm going to go like this, all the way around the top. And again, don't worry about the box, because I'm not really worried about drawing inside the box. I'm going to continue this out. And then I'm going to come down this edge again, just coloring with my pencil, essentially. And I'm adding value over my edge. And now in doing that, I have no more outline around my shape. Okay, let me see if I can straighten this camera out a little more. There. So I have no outline around my shape now. Now there's also a little shadow. Remember I said my 8 is over here, right? So there's kind of this shadow that pops up and it kind of comes down at an angle. So I'm going to go pretty hard over here. And again, keep my edge. And in doing this, I end up adding this hard transition on the outside, which is going to give a little bit more form and space to my entire drawing. So I have a little bit of a shadow, okay? And if I really want to be specific, I'd probably make this outside a little bit darker than the left side, but I won't waste your time looking at that. Okay, so now I've kind of laid out my outside, and then I'm going to go through and start working to the inside. So I'm going to look at probably this big piece right here. Now, remember, who can type this to tell us the answer? When we're adding value to something, do we start light or do we start dark? Light. Always start really light, okay? And I made this mistake in my first period class. I started too dark. especially right inside this space. Because if you look at this section right here on the actual image, it's really light on the, where's my cursor at? It's really light on the inside. It's kind of like maybe a 3, and then it goes like a 5 on these outsides. So I have to be really conscious of that. Now, let's also look at these transitions that we have. On this right-hand side, on the right-hand side right here, there's a really solid line. So my 5 that I have is butted right up against a 1. And that's shown because there's a sharp transition between the two of them, right? So what I'm going to do, because I have a sharp edge that I could put here, I'm going to come through with a dark line over my light line that I added. I'm going to make it kind of thick. See if this goes all the way down. It does. I'm going to take it all the way down here along this edge. And then I can take this and I can start expanding it out if I would like. If I feel that that's what it would look like, which I think it does. And remember, I have a really light in the middle. This is also a practice. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go like this. So I can take my tip of my pencil. I don't know if you can see that. And I can kind of flatten one edge of it. Because that flat edge, that'll help me blend a little bit more. And then I'll come out here and I'll go really light in the middle. Really light, Mr. Reynoso. Super light. And then I'll get darker over here on this side. And then I can kind of go back and forth. I can pull this shadow out a little bit more. And then I'm going to get to the other side. Now, the other side does not have this same transition. It doesn't have this solid, hard edge. Okay? Oh, no. I got to move my paper. Sorry, I keep moving my paper around. It doesn't have this solid edge right here. If I look back at my example, the other side, it's almost like a curve in the fabric. And I can tell it's a curve because there's not a hard edge. It's a soft light to a soft dark to a soft light again. So along this edge right here, I'm going to go pretty, is that the edge? No, this is the edge right here. I'm going to go pretty dark. Again, I'm going to ease into it. And then I'm going to try to blend that to my right. And then I'll blend it easy off to the left as well. And then I'll come back to add some more value in the middle. A little more. How's that looking? That's looking okay, although it's really, really bright out here. So I'm actually, I don't use my eraser much, but I'm actually going to use my eraser to come through and make this section a little bit tighter to make it brighter. And then I need to make this inside a lot darker. So I'm going to go from here to darker inside here. And because I made this center darker, I need to make these outside ones darker as well. It's all right. Okay. Now, it doesn't look great because the rest of it doesn't have value to it as well. So now I'm going to come add a little bit of value up here on the edge. And because I have this dark outside, I can add value here and keep it kind of light. And it will still look realistic because of that hard edge that I have. This shadow kind of comes in at a spike. And kind of comes down. And you see with this, now it's going to start kind of looking more like a sheet because I'm adding some form. I'm drawing the shapes of these shadows. Weird looking shapes. But all I'm trying to do is trying to draw and recreate the shapes that I see.
It's a little bit darker towards the left side of these shadows, so I'll add some darkness over here.
And then I look at it and I say, yeah, does that look good? Does that look bad? What should I fix? This isn't a finished piece. There's a bunch of stuff over here that I haven't finished yet. But the purpose isn't to finish a phenomenal looking sheet. The purpose is to study, to practice. See, what I did was I practiced this. I would say this line along this edge right here, this was a success. I think I did that one well. Kind of struggled with this one. So maybe I should try to practice something else. Well, okay, I'm going to move my paper, and I'm going to go, maybe if I try like this, maybe if I zoom in and I only focus on this area. So then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go like this and down. And I'm going to go over. And like that. And I'm really going to study this shadow up here. Kind of goes like this. And over and down. And then from this side goes kind of down and away like we talked about before. And then this kind of comes in a little curve. Like that. And this shadow kind of extends. So then I'm going to come through and start practicing with this. Okay, well, this is going to be pretty dark. So I think that looks about right. I'm going to come through and I'm going to start adding this shadow. You all see where I'm drawing from right now? I'm basically looking at this inside of this circle right here. And I just made it really big. This side, maybe that's why I was struggling so much with it before, is because it looks kind of like this whole fold right here is a shadow. So maybe I take my pencil lightly and I kind of shadow this whole space over here. Maybe that will help. And then this space needs, like my dark spaces are right up along this and along here. This kind of gets a little thicker. This is really light though in here. So let me go really light. That's looking a little better. So maybe I feel a little more comfortable with this. Okay. Another part that's fun to play with is down here. Okay, this section's really fun because it looks a lot like fabric. So now I have one study right here. I have another quick little study over here. That's just me practicing to really focus on that spot. I'm going to come down here and draw another one. Watch this one. I'm going to go, see, a line kind of comes out. And then if I cut across, it's almost the same height like this. And then, let's see, move this. There's another line. This one kind of comes down a ways. So this one's going to go like this. And then I have one final line that goes like this, way down here. And then this kind of goes up and over, and then it goes back out. And then this drops all the way down here. And this one goes and curves all the way back over here. And there's a line like this. And there's a line like this. And this line goes like that. So see, now I've kind of made this wrapping back and forth of where that side of that sheet is. And I can do the same game. Understand there's some interesting, intricate things here. I have my ones all along these left edges because that's where my light source is coming from. On the right side, I have my 3s or 4s, my darker edges. And then this is a really interesting space right here. Because if I look at it, the top of this is lighter, right? It's lighter than it is down here. It's darker. But as I follow this edge, look what happens over here. Now the top is darker and the bottom's lighter. because this chunk is darker than there. This chunk is darker than over here. And that happens a lot. So I got to make sure that I show that accordingly. So I'll come through and I'll kind of go like, okay, my shadow's going to start kind of right here. And this is going to be my probably 3 or 4 in terms of my darkness area. And I'm going to come through. I'm doing this one really quick for you all because I don't want to waste your all time. So I'm going to go like this. That's looking all right. And there's actually the whites only right there. So I'm going to try to get this a little closer. Okay. And then notice that I haven't gotten rid of this line out here. I didn't get rid of that line because this value is lighter than this one is out here. Okay. So if I don't need to get rid of that because this outside is going to be where my darkness comes from to really make that pop. And now I'm getting rid of that line and I'm making my solid edge. Notice how I continually talk about getting rid of my lines. This will wrap around here as well. Okay, now down here it's a little bit darker. So this isn't darker than this. This side is not darker than this side, but it is darker than all this stuff. So let me come through and I'll add this shadow. Right there. And now with that shadow, I have to get rid of this. This has gotten rid of that line. This shadow did. I have to get rid of this line, but I'm going to get rid of that line with this shadow underneath. So now see, I have no more lines left because I've gotten rid of them by adding value. Under here, there's some value, but it's going to be lighter than what's above it. And then out here, it's really dark, kind of like the darkness up here. If I got to add some more darkness right there, I can. Make that stand out and be different. And then you're really not going to see this pop until I come over to this side. And I add some value on this big section. What's going to happen is I'm going to come through like this. And it's going to get darker back here. And when I darken to erase these lines with my value, then that edge of the sheet will look like it's popping off. And it really gives it its form. And then under here is a lot darker. And that shadow, this shadow back here usually does a good job of making this seem like it's now popping off of this edge. I'm gonna kind of stop there. Okay, so see, I'm just kind of playing. Just playing around with it, see if it looks right. If it doesn't work, try something else. You're not going to be graded on how great this looks. You're going to be graded on the fact that you're trying and you're attempting to draw these things. You're attempting to draw them and you're attempting to add some value to it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking for. Now, to make sure that our requirements are all met, this is going to be a fairly simple project. You'll have 2 days to work on it. But what we're going to do, let me get this all centered up. Make sure I'm on my paper. There we go. Okay. You're going to do 5 studies. Okay, so 5 little sketches. You can do it all on the same piece of paper if you want to. You can use multiple if you feel necessary, but it's fine to do it all on one piece. The 2 things that I'm really, really looking for. No lines. Okay. Now, if I have a drawing like this and this isn't finished and there's lines there, that's fine. What I'm talking about is the lines here in our actual drawing. Okay. We're trying to get rid of those lines. So no lines. And the other one, I want to see the value scale from 1 to 8. We should be able to look at this. I should be able to look at it. You should be able to look at it and say, oh, here's my 8. Here's my 1. Here's my 3. Here's my 2. And label all of that stuff off. Okay. So 5 value studies. Try to get rid of all your lines with your value, adding your value to it. And then make sure we can see as much of the value scale as possible in your project. Okay. All these little study examples of different pieces of that fabric. The assignment that I will post, like as we speak, is going to have a link to this picture. So you can open this picture up. We'll all draw from the same picture. And you can utilize that. And then when you're done, you'll take a picture of your 5 studies and you'll post it to the assignment. Okay. It will be due. It'll be due on Wednesday. Okay. So you can start and do like maybe 1 today. Tomorrow, I'll talk about a couple of little tips and then we'll have that to work on for the next couple of days. Okay. Questions you have for me?